For today, covering the kind of stamping process we did for creating a different version of our charity partnership logo that we're going to put on t-shirts and bags and keychains and different things on Monday. So here's the look at the horizontal version. Remember, this is the logo we created in class. Last class we used our symbol, the charity symbol. Make sure it's in the same color palette as ours. This isn't the blue of the Kids Save the Rainforest logo, but I changed it to match the color palette of my brand. Remember, we had the title here spelled out. We had our tagline with our tagline font. In most cases, it was sans serif. Remember, we made it all caps and we wrote it in our tagline font and made it as if it was the tagline for our charity. That's what taglines are for. They're descriptor lines that can be removed from brands, or they could be used to add different details to the brand. So we had something a little bit like this. We used kind of a rectangle or a circle to create kind of this feeling of one. But we have our symbol or mascot sub-brand, we have their symbol or mascot sub-brand, we have the title of our charity, and we have our tagline spelling out our support or our lockup or partnership charity. So this is what we had at the beginning of last class. Now, today we learned about making a circular stamp version of our partnership. And you do that by holding down Shift and using your elliptical tool, you draw a circle. Now, we use the circle as kind of a path to write words on. So remember that when you create a shape inside Illustrator, you have a fill and a stroke. We wanted the fill to be none, so we're going to click on that, and we made the stroke a black color. Now, once we did that, we switched to our global selection arrow, and here is our circle. Now, as part of the process of class, we did Command C, Command V, we made a copy of it, put the copy over here, Command C, Command V. So we made a total of 3 of the exact same circle. Now, the reason we did that is because we're going to use the circle to create separate elements inside of our stamp style or circular brand. Now, once we created our circle, we switched our tool to the text on a path tool, which is this little T with the swivel, and we moved our mouse over to the edge of the circle. So you see that? You tap on it and it now makes the circle a guide. So it's no longer printable. It isn't black like this. It'll actually be blue, which you can see right here, which means it's a non-printable guide. Now, once we did that, we made all caps and we wrote the name of our charity. Now, once we wrote the name of our charity, we used our text tool to highlight it. We switched it to the font that is the font for our logo, which for me is Georgia, and we made it big. We made it fill about 1/3 of the circle, the top third of the circle. So I'm going to crank it up a little bit more. Now, once we did that, remember the default is it's black, which is perfectly fine for now. We switched to the global selection arrow. The reason we did that is because we had to talk about these 3 lines, that line on the inside, the line on the outside, and the line all by itself. Now, remember, these 2 lines are called bookend lines, which means the interior line is where the type starts on the path, and the outside line is where the path would end for your text. So I'm going to move my mouse to the interior line, and you should get this little symbol that has like a vertical line with an arrow to the right. And that means that it will allow you to pivot your text along the circle. See how I can spin that around? Now, I can move it off of itself, so I'm going to move it so the lines aren't so close together. So you see how these are separated? Now that will allow me to use my bounding box and move it just off to the edge to the curved arrows and rotate this thing around so it's kind of vertical. Now, we didn't do this in class, but if I did Command R and turned on my rulers, I could use a ruler guide to make sure that this thing is perfectly center aligned, which means I actually have to rotate this a little bit so that there's equal space here to the guide and equal space here to the guide. And I'm actually going to delete the guide once I pull the line down. Now, Next, we took our second circle and we kind of moved it down here. And we did the exact same thing. We used our text on a path, we tapped on the line, we put all caps, and we wrote in our partnership charity. So mine is this one. And traditionally, this is probably a longer name. So now we made it smaller because it still has to be 1/3. So we're going to crank this thing down, crank it down, crank it down, crank it down, crank it down. So there we go. Probably about 35 for me. A little bit over 1/3, a little closer to a half. That's okay. But we need to make it your tagline font. For me, it's Avenir. So we're going to make it Avenir. And so now you can see what this thing looks like. Now, once I do that, I'm going to switch to my global selection arrow. Now, remember that this line is for the beginning, this line is for the end. But for this part, we're going to use the line that's all by itself. And we're going to click and hold our mouse down and pull it to the inside. Once you pull it to the inside, the circle becomes text on the inside of the circle. So now I can move just off the edge and I can rotate this thing. Rotate it so it's flat. Now, once we have this text on the inside and this text on the outside, we're going to use our global selection arrow, and we're going to draw a big selection box over both the circles. So you see how I kind of click and drag a big circle? The reason I did that is because I want to use my alignment tool up here and do horizontal alignment and vertical alignment, so they snap together and they're on the exact same circle. So now you can see what's happening here, right? Our name curves to the top, the support charity curves to the bottom. Remember, we read top to bottom, so we want our charity on the top and theirs on the bottom. Now, we also read left to right. So I'm actually going to take a copy of our symbol, and I'm going to put it in here. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger, stick it in the negative space in the circle, Command G to make sure it's grouped. I'm going to copy this one. I'm going to move him over here. And now here's where layout comes into play. It's like, how big can I make it so that it makes it a full circle, but doesn't touch, like none of the elements touch, so that if it was a stamp and it was stamped using a single color, that there would be room between the shapes so that the ink didn't bleed into itself or touch each other. And so we created something that looks a little bit like this, and each student kind of played around with how big it is. Like, I guess in theory I could even maybe make that a little bit bigger and rotate it just a little bit so you can kind of see that circular shape. I could, so I'm going to move this and kind of move this one down. Because this one is so nicely circular, I'm going to make this one a little bit bigger and fit it in there, and make this guy, who's got to be a little bit smaller, make him a little bit smaller so he kind of fits in here. Now, this is all style. Like, how can we get these pieces to interact so it feels like a complete circle, but there's negative space so they don't touch so close together? Now, the reason we had the third circle was just in case we wanted to circle. So I'm going to do shift and make it bigger. We wanted to circle our graphic. So you see how I kind of made that go around my circle. I don't know if I love that. For some of you, it may work a little bit better than others, right? You can always kind of do that, kind of do this. We're trying to make a circle, or close to a circle, where our thing becomes kind of a bit of a stamp. Some of you got that to work a little bit. I don't love it for mine, so I'm going to get rid of it. But here is our two versions of our partnership brand. Our Kava House supports Kids Save the Rainforest. We have the horizontal and we have the vertical. Now, the homework for submitting for Sunday is to have these two logos placed into our brand manual, our little brand manual, as page number 6. And so let me see if I have a template of my brand manual on my computer here. Yeah, I have my template here. So page number 6 inside of our brand manual is our charity. So it's going to ask you to paste in your color palette. You're going to say yes. Make sure you hold down shift and you scale it down, and you're going to drop your two logos right in here. Now, Monday we're going to add t-shirts, bags, and a total of 3 swag items over here. So we just need it here as kind of a space holder. Now, you can either give me your logo as part of your last name charity.ai inside of Canvas, or you can give it to me as your brand manual with your logos just as space holders on page number 6. Whichever one works for you is perfectly fine for me. You just need to make sure that you complete, so I can actually make these a little bit bigger. Make sure you complete both the stamp version, the circular version, and the horizontal version. I hope everyone that was out for sports did well, and I'll see you guys on Monday. Now remember, Sunday is the submission for our brand logo for charity, so make sure you give me this by the end of class on Monday. I'll be grading after class. All right, gang, have a great day.